The galactic throne hall glowed with pale silver light as Commander Rylan Ward stood alone on the center platform. He felt hundreds of eyes watching him from the raised balconies that circled the hall. The walls were tall, shaped like spears of crystal, and tiny stars floated above him as holograms. It was the kind of place where the galaxy's greatest leaders made decisions that changed history. Yet all Rylan could think about was the quiet alien woman standing with the rescued civilians behind the council's guards. Her name was Liara. He remembered her face the moment he saw her, calm, tired, and carrying an expression that looked like she had learned to live with pain. She was Velari, one of the most elegant species in the Coalition, silver markings traced across her skin, glowing faintly under the hall's lights. She looked down, uncertain, as if she did not understand why she had been brought into a chamber meant for rulers. Rylan was asked to choose his reward. The Supreme Coalition had announced it formally. He could have anything. A private planet. Endless wealth. High command over fleets. A royal title. His name in every history book. Anything he spoke aloud would be granted. The council elder, a long-armed creature with a pale blue face, raised his voice. Commander Rylan Ward of Earth. You have ended the war with less bloodshed than we predicted. You have shown unusual restraint and mercy. For this, the Coalition offers you one request. Choose your reward, and it shall be yours. The hall whispered at once. Most believed humans were ambitious. Some expected him to claim a throne. Others believed he would choose a powerful fleet, making humans feared again. A few ambassadors watched him with narrowed eyes, already preparing their counter-arguments. Rylan heard every whisper echoing around him, but none of it mattered. He was thinking about a different day, months earlier, when his ship landed near a burning Velari settlement. He remembered running through the smoke, finding survivors hiding inside a broken home, and the one woman who stood in the doorway holding 2 children behind her. She was trembling yet determined, refusing to move even when soldiers shouted at her. He remembered seeing her tears when she begged him to help the children first, and he remembered how she fainted from exhaustion after pushing them into his arms. That woman was Liara, and now she stood here again alive, but only barely holding herself together. The elder's voice filled the chamber once more. Speak your choice, human. Rylan took a slow breath. He had already decided long before he entered this hall. He glanced once more at Liara. She looked confused. She had no idea he would even notice her here. He turned back to the council. My request, he said, his voice steady, is Liara's freedom and her safe escort to wherever she chooses to live. The hall froze. The murmurs stopped, like someone had cut every sound at once. Rylan could hear his own heartbeat in the silence. Council members leaned forward, unsure if they had heard correctly. Even Liara stepped back a little, her eyes wide with shock. The elder blinked slowly. Human, you may choose power, wealth, command. Why ask for this Velari woman's freedom? She is a civilian we already rescued. Rylan shook his head. She may be rescued, but she is not free. If you release her without protection, she will be hunted by those who blame her people for the war. I saw what she suffered. I saw the fear she lived in. My reward is her safety. Nothing more. Gasps and arguments erupted around the balconies. Some species were outraged. He wastes a galactic reward on a single woman? He does this to look noble. Humans always have hidden plans. This must be manipulation. Why her? Why not something useful? Liara stood frozen, her hands shaking. She had never expected to be the focus of the entire galaxy's attention. She had never expected anyone, let alone a human, to use a priceless reward on her life. The elder raised a hand for silence. Commander, this is your final choice? Rylan nodded. Yes. Liara lowered her head. Her breath trembled. She was overwhelmed by the sound of so many people discussing her like she was an object. Yet the human stood firm, defending her with a calm courage she could not understand. The elder exhaled. Very well. The council accepts your request. Light flashed around the platform as the acceptance seal glowed above Rylan. The hall reacted again, some in shock, some in anger, some in disbelief. Rylan stepped off the platform and walked toward Liara. She hesitated, unsure if she should speak. When he reached her, he gave a small, gentle smile. "You're free now," he told her softly. Liara looked up at him with eyes that seemed ready to cry. "You gave up everything." "For me? I didn't give up anything," Rylan replied. "I chose something that mattered." Liara tried to speak but couldn't. Her throat tightened. She had never been treated as someone important, someone worth fighting for. She had lived months in fear, hiding from soldiers, losing her family, and believing her life held no value. And now, this human, a man who could have ruled half a system, had chosen her freedom as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Guards opened the exit doors, and Rylan guided her out. But Liara felt a strange weight in her chest. Something didn't feel safe. She sensed unfriendly eyes watching them. As soon as they stepped into the corridor, Rylan noticed the same thing. Shadows moved near the far corners. Figures whispered to each other. Some council factions clearly did not approve of his choice. "Stay close," he whispered. Liara followed, her steps light but shaken. They walked through the long hallway lined with floating lamps shaped like stars. The walls shimmered with the history of every major event. Yet Liara didn't feel like history was behind them. She felt like danger was walking right beside them. Rylan guided her to the transport dock. A young human officer, Mira, saluted them. "Your shuttle is ready, sir." Rylan nodded. "We leave immediately." Liara glanced at him nervously. "Did I cause trouble for you?" Rylan shook his head. "Not trouble, just attention. Some people dislike choices they cannot understand." Liara lowered her gaze. "I don't understand it either." Rylan smiled softly. "You don't need to understand it right now." They boarded the sleek transport. Liara sat near the window, her fingers trembling as she touched the glass. She watched the stars drift outside, feeling like she was leaving a cage she had never realized was closed around her. Rylan sat across from her, studying a datapad. "I requested your official protection papers. They should arrive soon." Liara swallowed. "Why do you care so much?" Rylan paused. For a moment he didn't answer. Then he said quietly, "During the war, I saw a lot of people who lost everything. But you were different. You didn't ask for help for yourself. You only asked me to save the children first." I never forgot that day. Liara's breath hitched. She remembered that moment clearly too. She remembered seeing his face through the smoke, calm, determined, and strangely kind for someone wearing a weapon. The ship began to move. Just as the stars stretched into long, bright lines, Liara sensed something sharp in her chest. A strange fear. Something was wrong. It felt like the air had thickened. Rylan noticed her expression. "Liara? What's wrong?" she whispered. "Someone is following us." Rylan checked the sensors. His jaw tightened. Another ship had begun tracing their path. No identification. No clearance code. "Stay calm," he told her. He alerted Mira. "Prepare evasive route." The transport sped forward, but the mysterious ship followed them like a shadow across the stars. Liara gripped the seat, fear rising. "They're here because of me." "Your choice," angered someone. "Rah!" Rylan shook his head. "My choice was the right one, but it put you in danger." Rylan looked at her firmly. "I don't regret it." Liara had no words. She had never met anyone who valued her life this way. Suddenly the transport shook violently. A blast hit the rear engine. Alarms blared loudly. Mira struggled to stabilize the ship. "They're trying to disable us," Mira shouted. Rylan moved quickly. "Liara, stay behind me." She nodded, trembling, but her eyes remained fixed on him. She watched as he issued commands calmly, even while the ship was shaking. She wondered how a human could be so fearless. Another blast hit. Rylan leaned close to her. "Listen to me. We might have to escape in the emergency shuttle." Liara swallowed hard. "Will we survive?" "We will," he said with steady confidence. The burning smell of the engine reached the cabin. Mira shouted again. "Rear engine's failing. We're losing control." Rylan grabbed Liara's hand, pulling her toward the emergency pod. She had no time to think, she only followed his strength. The ship tilted sharply, and alarms grew louder. The mysterious attackers fired again. Rylan pulled her inside the pod. "Hold on to the straps," he ordered. Liara did as he said. The pod launched into the darkness, spinning through space like a small metal seed. Liara closed her eyes as they tumbled. The noise shook her bones. When the pod finally stabilized, Rylan checked her quickly. "Are you hurt?" Liara shook her head, still shaking. "No, but I'm scared." Rylan rested a hand on her shoulder. "You're safe, I promise." For the first time in months, she believed someone's promise. The pod drifted toward an uncharted moon covered in clouds, and Liara wondered what this new world would bring. But she knew one thing already. The human had chosen her over power, and now his choice had changed both of their lives forever. The escape pod shook as it entered the thin atmosphere of the uncharted moon. The sky outside turned orange, then blue, then a color Liara had never seen before. Like glowing silver smoke, she held tightly to the straps across her chest. Rylan sat beside her, hands braced on the pod's control bars, watching the display with focused concentration. When the pod finally stopped trembling, Liara opened her eyes and saw that they were drifting low over a strange forest of tall white trees, each glowing softly like moonlight. Rylan exhaled. "We made it through the entry." "That's a good sign." Liara nodded slowly. She felt her heartbeat calming, but her mind was still full of fear. The unknown ship, the attack, the explosion. All of it had happened too quickly. She looked at Rylan's face and wondered how he could look so steady after everything. The pod landed with a rough bounce on soft ground. Rylan unstrapped himself and helped Liara stand. When the hatch opened, a cool wind brushed against her skin. The forest looked unreal, trees rising like pillars of light, leaves shaped like small glowing feathers, and the ground covered in soft dust that sparkled faintly. "It feels like a dream," Liara whispered. Rylan stepped out first, checking the surroundings. "Let's stay alert. A moon like this hasn't been charted, so we don't know what lives here." Liara followed carefully. Her steps made tiny circles of glowing dust around her feet. She touched the nearest tree gently, and light spread through its bark. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "It is," Rylan agreed, though he was scanning the area rather than admiring it. Liara looked at him, noticing the tiredness around his eyes. "You didn't sleep on the transport," she said. Rylan offered a small smile. "Neither did you." "Because I was scared," she said quietly. He shook his head. "I'll rest later. First, we need to assess our situation." They retrieved survival supplies from the pod. Emergency rations, a small purifier, thermal blankets, a beacon, and a portable shelter kit. Rylan carried most of the load even when Liara offered to help. "You've been through too much already," he said gently. Liara didn't argue, but inside she felt a strange discomfort. She wasn't used to someone taking care of her. She wasn't used to being treated like she mattered. Rylan led the way deeper into the glowing forest, searching for a safe place to set up camp. The air smelled fresh, almost sweet. Liara listened to the distant hum of unknown insects and watched small winged creatures drifting between the branches. After a few minutes of walking, Rylan paused near a cluster of trees shaped like a natural shelter. This looks safe enough for now. They began setting up the portable dome. Liara watched him work. His movements were precise, practiced, but also gentle. He explained each step to her in simple words, making sure she knew how to activate the dome if he was gone. "Why do you explain everything to me?" she asked softly. Rylan looked surprised. "I want you to feel safe, and if anything happens, you should know how to protect yourself." Liara didn't speak for a moment. Then she whispered, "No one has ever taught me anything like that before." Rylan's expression softened. Then we'll start now. Inside the dome, they activated the heating pad and purifier. Warm air filled the small shelter. Liara sat down on the padded floor, feeling exhaustion settling into her bones. Rylan checked the beacon, but it only blinked weakly. The signal isn't strong, he said. The atmosphere might be interfering. Liara looked up. Will anyone find us? Maybe, he replied. But it depends on who reaches us first. The coalition rescue ships, or the ones who attacked us. Liara's hands trembled. She looked at the floor. I caused all this trouble. You could have had anything. Power, wealth, a safe life. Instead, you are stuck on this moon with someone who has nothing. Rylan sat down across from her. Liara, when I made my choice, I didn't think I was giving up anything important. I chose what felt right. But why me? She asked quietly. There are thousands who suffered. Many deserve help more than I do. Rylan shook his head. That's not how I see it. When I first saw you that day during the war, you didn't think about yourself. You pushed 2 children toward safety and stayed behind to slow down the attackers. You risked your life for others. That isn't something I can forget. Liara felt her throat tighten. She remembered the children clearly, 2 young Valari boys who clung to her when the village burned. She remembered how heavy fear felt, and how she had thought she wouldn't survive. And she remembered the moment the human soldier appeared like a sudden wall of light between them and death. You saved us, she whispered. Rylan shook his head again. We saved them together. Liara looked away quickly, her eyes stinging with emotion she didn't understand. She didn't want him to see tears, so she turned her face toward the dome wall. Rylan didn't push her. He simply sat near her, offering quiet presence instead of questions. Hours passed. They stored the supplies, purified water, and took turns exploring a small area outside the dome. Liara tried to help, but she was still nervous, still unsure if she belonged at Rylan's side. When she watched him step outside the dome, she worried every time he disappeared behind the glowing trees. During one short patrol, Rylan returned with a handful of soft fruits that glowed faintly. These seem edible, he said. The scanner shows no toxins. Liara examined them carefully. Valari fruits glow like this too, she said. Maybe they're similar. Rylan offered one to her first. Try a small bite. Liara bit the fruit gently. Her eyes widened. It tastes like sweet rain, Rylan smiled. That sounds like a good sign. They shared the fruits and ate quietly together. Liara felt warmth spreading through her chest that had nothing to do with the heated dome. For the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. But that comfort didn't last long. Later in the night, Rylan went outside again to check the beacon signal. Liara waited, listening for his footsteps. Minutes passed. Then more minutes. Her heart beat faster. She stood up and slowly stepped outside the dome. Rylan, she whispered. The glowing trees made shadows dance across the ground. Liara walked forward, her steps light. She didn't see him at first. When she reached the place near a tall tree, she finally saw him crouched near a strange mark on the ground. What is it? She asked, coming closer. Rylan pointed to a set of footprints, deep, round, and larger than any human or Valari step. Something walked through here recently. Liara swallowed. Is it dangerous? I don't know, Rylan answered. We need to be cautious. They returned to the dome together. Rylan sat near the entrance, keeping watch. Liara hesitated before sitting beside him. She felt safer near him, even though she didn't know why. Do you think the people who attacked us followed us here? She asked quietly. Maybe, Rylan said. Or maybe this moon has its own creatures. Either way, we stay alert. Liara nodded. But inside, she felt something stronger than fear, guilt. If not for her, Rylan wouldn't be in danger. If not for her, he would still be a celebrated hero, not hunted across strange worlds. After some time, she whispered, You shouldn't protect me. You're risking too much. Liara, Rylan said firmly, Choosing your freedom wasn't a mistake. She looked at him, eyes shining. Even now? Even after everything that happened today? Especially now, he said. I would make the same choice again. Liara's breath trembled. She didn't know what to say. She had never heard someone speak with such quiet conviction. Not about her. Not about any Valari she knew. She didn't understand how a human could see value in her life when she barely saw it herself. A distant howl echoed from deep inside the glowing forest. Liara jolted. Rylan stood up immediately, scanning the area with his hand on the emergency tool. We stay inside tonight, he said calmly. They sealed the dome and dimmed the inner lights. Liara sat close to Rylan, feeling safer only when she could hear his steady breathing beside her. Outside, the forest hummed with unknown life forms, but inside, she felt like she had a small world of warmth. As hours passed, Liara found herself watching Rylan's face as he stayed awake. He was tired, yet alert. Strong, yet gentle. She wondered again why he had chosen her freedom. She wondered what he saw in her that she couldn't see in herself. By dawn, if it could be called dawn, since the sky only shifted from blue to soft white, Liara finally spoke again. Rylan, she whispered, I don't want to run anymore. Rylan looked at her curiously. What do you mean? I don't want to hide behind you, she said. I want to help you. I want to stand with you. If someone is hunting you because of your choice, then I want to face them too. Rylan smiled a little. You're brave, Liara. She shook her head. I'm just tired of being afraid. Rylan considered her words. There's something you should know. If we stay here, the ones who attacked us might find us first. But if we travel to the Valari capital, you can speak on my behalf. You can explain why I made my choice. Liara took a long breath. Yes, I want that. I want to tell the truth. Rylan nodded. Then we leave soon. Liara felt something new inside her strength she thought she had lost forever. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't just surviving, she had a purpose. The soft white sky above the uncharted moon brightened slowly as Rylan and Liara prepared to leave. The portable dome was folded neatly, the supplies packed, and the emergency beacon stored for later use. Liara stood near the glowing trees, watching their soft light pulse gently. She felt the same strange calm she had felt the previous night. But beneath it was something stronger: determination. She had made her choice. She would not let Rylan face danger alone. Rylan walked to her with a small handheld scanner. The coast looks clear, he said. No signs of the large creature from yesterday. We should move before anything wakes up. Liara nodded. Where will we go? To the emergency launch ridge, Rylan said, pointing toward a line of distant cliffs. If we reach the ridge, we can use the pod's secondary boosters to get high enough for a distress signal. Someone will hear us. Liara took a deep breath. Then we should go together. Rylan smiled slightly at her words. We will. He adjusted the straps of his pack. Stay close to me. They began walking through the glowing forest. The ground shimmered under their feet with every step, creating a trail of pale light behind them. Liara kept her eyes open, listening for any signs of danger. She remembered the howl from the night before and didn't want to be surprised again. The forest changed slowly as they moved. The glowing trees became thinner, replaced by tall, crystal-like formations growing from the ground. Some were shaped like long spikes, others looked like smooth, bent pillars. Liara touched one gently, and her reflection shone back in a soft blur. It's like the moon grows its own mirrors, she whispered. Rylan glanced around. We should be careful. These crystals may interfere with sound. Liara nodded, stepping closer to him. For a long stretch, they walked in near silence. The only noise was the soft crunch of the glowing dust beneath their steps. After a while, Liara finally spoke. Rylan, what will happen when we reach the capital? Rylan looked at her with calm eyes. That depends on what you want to say. Liara looked down. I want to tell them the truth. About you. About what you did. I want them to know you saved us. I want them to know your choice wasn't political. Rylan stopped walking and looked at her seriously. Liara, you don't have to defend me. You don't owe me anything. Liara shook her head firmly. No. I want to. If I stay silent, they will twist your intentions. They will say you chose me for selfish reasons. I cannot let that happen. One manga. Rylan studied her expressions carefully. Her eyes were bright, determined, and filled with a strength he hadn't seen when they first met. She was no longer the frightened woman hiding behind fear. She was standing beside him as an equal. Then we will face them together, he said gently. Liara nodded, feeling warmth fill her chest. She didn't feel alone anymore. Suddenly the scanner beeped sharply. Rylan checked the small screen. Something is moving toward us. Liara stiffened. The creature? Rylan shook his head. No. This signal is metallic. Liara's heart dropped. A ship? Possibly, Rylan said. But it might not be friendly. Oh. He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward a large crystal pillar. They hid behind it as a distant hum filled the air. A shadow moved across the ground. Liara looked up slowly. A sleek black craft drifted through the sky, scanning the forest below. Rylan whispered, "It's not coalition design." Liara's breathing grew shallow. They found us. The ship hovered for a moment longer, then moved away, gliding in the direction of their escape pod. Rylan clenched his jaw. "They're tracing our crash site," he said. "We need to move faster." They left the hiding spot and walked quickly toward the ridge. The path became steeper, the trees fewer, the crystals thicker. Liara felt her legs growing tired but pushed through it. Rylan slowed his pace whenever she stumbled, never leaving her behind. After a long climb, they reached the base of the ridge. It rose sharply like a jagged wall, but narrow ledges formed a rough path up the side. Rylan examined it. "We can climb it," he said, carefully. Liara swallowed hard. "I'll follow you." He offered his hand as they began the climb. Liara's fingers gripped the cold stone, and she used her tail, something her species had for balance, to steady herself. Rylan climbed ahead, guiding her upward. Every so often, he looked back to make sure she was okay. Halfway up, Liara paused to catch her breath. "Rylan, what if the council doesn't believe me?" Rylan rested on a ledge and looked down at her. "They don't have to believe you. They just have to hear you. After that, the truth will spread on its own." Liara blinked slowly. "You speak like someone who has seen this before." Rylan nodded. During the war, truth often saved more lives than weapons did. Liara found strength in his calmness and climbed the remaining distance. At the top, the view stretched far beyond the glowing forest. A wide plain lay in the distance, and at its center was a tall, metallic object. Liara pointed. "Is that?" Rylan smiled. "Yes. The secondary booster tower. Our chance to escape this moon." They hurried toward it. The tower wasn't tall, about 3 times the size of the escape pod, but it was strong enough to launch their distress signal high into space. Rylan connected the beacon to the tower's base and activated the controls. A humming vibration rose from the ground, and light shot upward like a pale column. Liara shielded her eyes. "Will someone see it?" "Anyone nearby will," Rylan said. "But let's hope the right people get here first." Before Liara could answer, a loud engine roar echoed across the plain. She turned to see the same black ship descending toward them. "They found us again," she cried. Rylan grabbed her hand. "Behind the tower!" They ran behind the metal structure as the ship landed, kicking up clouds of dust. Armed figures emerged, tall, armored, and moving like trained mercenaries. Liara trembled. "They're here to capture you," she whispered. "Maybe both of us," Rylan said, eyes steady. The mercenaries approached the tower, scanning the area. Rylan held a small emergency flare in his hand. He whispered, "When I distract them, run to the east side of the ridge. Stay low." Liara grabbed his arm. "No, I'm not leaving you." "You must," Rylan insisted. "They will use you to pressure me." Liara shook her head stubbornly. "I will not run." Before Rylan could argue more, One mercenary stepped closer to the tower. Rylan acted immediately. He activated the flare and tossed it far to the left. It exploded in a burst of red light. The mercenaries turned toward the noise. Rylan whispered, "Go now." But instead of running away, Liara stepped out from behind the tower, raising her hands high. Her voice echoed across the plain. "Stop! We are under coalition protection." The mercenaries turned toward her. Rylan froze. Liara's bravery shocked him, but there was no time to react. The mercenaries moved toward her. Liara stood straight, her silver markings glowing with courage. "You have no right to capture a coalition witness," she shouted. The mercenaries hesitated. They were used to hunting, not dealing with official witnesses. In their moment of confusion, Rylan pulled Liara back behind the tower. "What are you doing?" he whispered sharply. "Helping you," she said firmly. "Like I promised." Before the mercenaries could regroup, a bright blue light filled the sky. Another ship descended, sleek, silver, and carrying the insignia of the Velari High Council. Liara gasped. "My people!" Coalition guards stepped out of the ship, surrounding the mercenaries with energy shields. The mercenaries dropped their weapons quickly. Realizing they were outmatched, the coalition guards arrested them and secured the area. A tall Velari officer approached Rylan and Liara. "Commander Ward, Citizen Liara, we received your distress signal. The council requests your presence immediately." Liara nodded firmly. "We are ready." The journey to the Velari capital was tense but safe. When the ship finally landed inside a gleaming courtyard of blue stone, Liara felt her heart beating fast. Rylan walked beside her. As they stepped into the council hall, dozens of Velari nobles and officers turned to look at them. Some stared at Rylan with suspicion. Others looked at Liara with interest. The elder of the Velari council stepped forward. "Liara," he said, "you requested to speak." Liara stepped up with trembling hands but a steady voice. "Yes, I need to tell the truth." The hall grew silent. She spoke of the day Rylan saved her village, of how he chose her freedom over power, how he protected her, how he stood against attackers, and how he never asked for anything in return. Her voice cracked sometimes, but she did not stop. She told them Rylan was not trying to control her, he was trying to protect her. Rylan listened quietly, his chest tight with emotion. He had expected resistance, anger, or fear from the council. But Liara stood stronger than anyone. She didn't hide. She didn't break. When she finished, there was silence. Then the elder spoke softly. "Liara, your testimony carries weight. Commander Ward, your actions show honor. The council grants you both full protection." Rylan blinked. "Both?" Liara smiled gently. "I asked for it." Rylan turned to her, surprised. "Why?" Liara looked into his eyes. "Because you chose me when you didn't have to. And now, I choose to stand with you." For the first time, Rylan didn't know what to say. Liara reached out and took his hand gently. The hall watched silently as the human and the Velari woman stood side by side, no fear, no hesitation, only trust. Together, they stepped forward into a future shaped not by power or riches, but by a choice that changed both their lives forever. Liara stood beside Rylan as the Velari council dismissed the gathering. The hall slowly emptied as officers, nobles, and diplomats drifted out through the tall crystal doors. Some left quietly, others whispered among themselves, and a few bowed politely at Liara as they passed. She was surprised by the sudden respect. Only days ago she had felt invisible, just another survivor of war. But now they looked at her as someone who mattered. Rylan watched them carefully. "You spoke with courage," he said softly. "More than I expected. I'm proud of you." Liara turned to him, her silver markings glowing faintly with emotion. "I meant every word I said. The truth needed to be told." They walked together through the long hallway that led to the courtyard. Velari guards escorted them politely. But Rylan still checked every corner. Months of war and the recent attack had sharpened his instincts too deeply to relax. When they reached the open courtyard, Liara stopped to look at the sky. Valari clouds floated like bright blue ribbons across the horizon, and tall structures shaped like spiraling shells rose across the city. She inhaled deeply, almost trembling. "It's been so long since I've seen my homeworld from a place of safety," she whispered. Rylan stood beside her. "Does it feel different now?" She nodded slowly. "It feels like I'm allowed to breathe again." They were taken to a guest residence near the council chambers. The rooms were soft blue, decorated with light-catching glass art that shifted colors whenever someone walked by. Liara sat on a wide couch, running her fingers along the smooth surface. Everything felt unreal. Rylan placed their supplies near the door and sat across from her. "You should rest," he said. "You've had a long day." Liara looked at him carefully. "You need rest too." "I will," he said, though she could see he was still tense. A moment of silence passed before Liara asked, "Rylan, what will happen to the ones who attacked us?" Rylan lowered his gaze. "The mercenaries will be questioned. The council will find out who hired them. But whoever planned it won't give up easily." Liara touched her hands gently. "Because you chose me?" "Because I refused their expectations," Rylan corrected. "They wanted me to choose power, influence, alliance, something they understood. I didn't." Liara watched him closely. She felt guilt again rising inside her chest. "You didn't choose me for political reasons, but because you chose something that didn't benefit you. Some people hate that." Rylan nodded slowly. "And some fear it." Liara felt a quiet sadness. She had never wanted anyone to suffer because of her. But as she looked at Rylan again, she realized something he didn't show regret. "Not even a hint," she whispered. "You really would make the same choice again?" Rylan looked straight into her eyes. "Every single time." Liara felt something warm spread inside her chest. For the first time since the war, she felt a sense of worth not because of what she could do, but because someone saw humanity in her that she had forgotten existed. Before Liara could say anything more, a soft chime echoed from the door. A Valari attendant stepped inside with a respectful bow. "The council elder requests your presence in the lower chamber," she said. "Both of you." Rylan stood immediately. Liara followed him out into the hallway. The lower chamber was quieter, smaller, and lit with soft blue flames. The elder stood near a round table, his long arms folded behind him. "Liara, Commander Ward," he greeted. They bowed politely. The elder spoke with calm authority. "The investigation has begun. The mercenaries confessed they were hired by a political faction angered by the humans' choice. Their intention was to capture one of you as leverage." Liara stiffened. "Capture? Me?" "Yes," the elder confirmed. "And use Commander Ward's influence as bargaining power." Rylan clenched his jaw but stayed silent. The elder continued. "Your survival and your arrival here have complicated their plans. They will not risk further public actions now, but be cautious. Quiet enemies are harder to predict." Liara swallowed. "What will happen to us now?" The elder looked at her gently. "That depends on what both of you want." He turned toward Rylan. "Commander Ward, your protection status has been approved. You are welcome here as long as you wish. The Coalition has also issued you a formal thank you for your moral actions during the war." Rylan bowed slightly. "I appreciate that." The elder then turned to Liara. His tone softened. "Liara, you have been offered a place in the Voice Circle. It is a group of survivors who speak on behalf of displaced citizens. You showed great courage today. Your voice carries weight." Liara's breath caught. "Me? In the Voice Circle? You represent something important," the elder said. "Someone who survived violence, but now stands with strength. Your words can help many." Liara looked down, feeling overwhelmed. She couldn't imagine standing before large groups and speaking for others. She was still learning to stand without shaking. The elder added, "You do not need to decide today. Think about it." He dismissed them with a gentle gesture. As they walked back to the residence, Liara remained quiet. Rylan could tell she was thinking deeply. "Back inside the room," he asked softly, Are you all right? Liara nodded slowly. I just never expected anything like this. People listening to me, respecting me, asking for my voice. You earned it, Rylan said. Liara looked at him with emotion in her eyes. I only had the courage to speak because you believed in me. Rylan hesitated for a moment, then said, You had the courage before we ever met. I only helped you see it. Liara felt her throat tighten. She wanted to say more, but the words felt too heavy. She turned and walked to the balcony overlooking the glowing city. Rylan followed and stood beside her. The wind carried a gentle warmth, brushing against their skin. This world feels different now, Liara whispered. Not because it changed, but because I'm no longer walking through it alone. Rylan looked at her. You're not. She turned to face him fully. Rylan, when you chose my freedom, it gave me my life back. But it also gave me something I never expected. What's that? He asked gently. A reason to stand, she whispered. A reason to live with purpose again. A reason to live with purpose again. Rylan's chest tightened at her words. He had protected many people during the war, but few had spoken with such vulnerable honesty. He said quietly, Liara, your life has value beyond anything I gave you. You are stronger than you think. Liara stepped closer, her voice soft. And you are kinder than you know. The wind blew lightly around them. The glowing city shimmered below. And for the first time, Liara felt safe not because of walls or guards, but because someone cared enough to stand by her without expecting anything in return. Days passed peacefully after that moment. Rylan met with nearby coalition officers, offering strategies to stabilize fragile regions after the war. Liara met healers and counselors who asked for her guidance, hoping she could help other survivors. She visited memorial gardens, offered small words of comfort, and slowly began to understand why the elder believed she belonged in the voice circle. One evening, Liara and Rylan walked along a quiet sky bridge. Valari lanterns floated gently around them, shedding white-blue light. Rylan asked, Have you decided about the voice circle? Liara looked out at the drifting lanterns. I think, yes. I want to help. I want to speak for the people who don't have voices left. Rylan smiled gently. You'll be good at it. Liara glanced at him. Will you stay for a while? On this world? Rylan hesitated not because he wanted to leave, but because he didn't want to assume anything. If my presence causes political tension, I can leave once we know you're safe. Liara stepped closer, her voice firmer than before. Your presence doesn't cause tension. It brings balance. And... She paused, gathering courage. I don't want you to leave. Rylan felt something warm bloom inside him. Then I'll stay, he said softly. Liara released a long breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Thank you, Liara, Rylan said gently. I didn't choose your freedom because I wanted repayment. I chose it because your life mattered. Liara looked directly into his eyes. And I choose you as someone I trust, someone I want beside me. Rylan's expression softened. I'm honored. Liara lowered her voice. And I hope one day you understand what your choice meant to me. I'd like to, he replied. They stood together in peaceful silence, the lanterns glowing around them like floating stars. The war felt far away now. The fear that controlled her life felt like a fading shadow, and the loneliness she once carried felt distant, replaced by something warm and steady. In the days that followed, Liara was welcomed into the voice circle. She stood beside other survivors, speaking with calm strength about rebuilding homes and protecting displaced families. Rylan supported her quietly, never stepping into her spotlight, always staying close enough that she knew she wasn't alone. Valari children approached her for advice. Elders asked for her thoughts. Officers listened when she spoke. Her life, once marked by fear and loss, began to shine with purpose. And always, Rylan walked beside her, listening, protecting, guiding when she needed it, but giving her space to grow. One morning, Liara stood on a balcony as the sun rose in soft waves of blue light. Rylan joined her quietly. She said, "Do you think things will stay peaceful now?" Rylan looked at the horizon. "Peace is never certain. But we face whatever comes next together." Liara smiled gently. "Together. I like that." He nodded. "So do I." Liara touched the balcony rail, feeling the cool surface under her fingertips. She looked at Rylan with quiet gratitude. The human who could have had riches or power had asked for her instead, and because he chose her freedom, she found strength, purpose, and a future she once thought impossible. Rylan looked back at her, understanding her unspoken thoughts. "Liara," he said softly, "your life was never a lesser choice. It was the choice that mattered." She stepped closer. "And you were the one who reminded me I was still alive." Together, they stood as the new day broke across the Valari capital. Two lives changed by one unexpected choice. Two paths now joined, not by duty or reward, but by trust, respect, and a bond that neither had planned, but both cherished deeply. Their future was unknown, but no longer frightening, because now, they walked into it side by side,